Chris has issued a sort of blueprint for dealing with the COVID-19 period. He's called it the COVID-19 Financial Review, and in bold letters he's written, "Turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is king." That's certainly a mantra by which we've been living at Progressive for the last sort of 2-3 years. Sorry, 2-3 weeks. Feels like 2 or 3 years though. All the sort of change we've had, it's been a crazy period. So yeah, Chris, I just really wanted to start by going through a few of the benefits and also some of the things that we need to do within our businesses to make sure that we can sort of endure and get through this period. So the first thing which you mentioned is the self-employed income support scheme. I know this will be relevant to lots of our customers. I don't think I qualify, or Rob. You seem pretty sure about that very quickly, but lots of people will. Do you want to just give the top line of how that works and who's likely to qualify?
Yeah, sure. So if you recall the first financial review I sent you was based off the Chancellor's announcement on Friday the 20th of March. Now, at that stage, he hadn't done much for the self-employed people. Subsequently, what happened, he made an announcement on the 25th of March, and then that announcement basically brought in something called self-employment income support scheme. Now, the first thing to work out is, are you self-employed? Now, it might sound obvious, but a lot of people don't actually realise if they are self-employed. So you need a self-assessment tax return, number one. Number two is, if you look on page TR2 of that tax return, you would either have ticked box 2 or box 3. So that means you're either a sole trader or in a partnership. So to give you an idea, some people say, well, I run my own limited company, so I must be self-employed. But unfortunately, if you're a director of a company, even if it's your own company, and you own all the shares, then that doesn't necessarily make you self-employed.
For the purposes of this, but it might, in terms of a bank or, you know, for the purposes of something else, but it's just the definition that HMRC are using for the purposes of this.
Yes, so like I say, the main thing you've got to look at is, do you tick box 2 or box 3 of your self-assessment tax return, and to see if you comply with this legislation. Now, the other thing is, the government have said, is you must be self-employed as at 5th of April 2019. So that tax return had to be filed by the latest date, 31st of January 2020. The government have said, if you're late, we will extend the deadline till the 23rd of April 2020 to file the tax return. Now, that means that you will have filed the tax return late, so you may be liable for interest and penalties, but that's a separate matter. You've got to get in this system to have a tax return for the year ended 5th of April 2019 to qualify. The next point is, your trading profits can't be more than £50,000. Otherwise, the government won't allow you to fall within this scheme. So what they're saying is they're trying to mirror the job retention scheme, i.e. it starts on the 1st of March 2020 and goes on for 3 months. So expires on the 31st of May 2020, and the government have said they will pay the lower of 80% of your profits over the last 3 years, or £2,500 a month. So then you've got to decide if you pass the other hurdles. So the first hurdle is that your trading profits in the year ended 5th of April 2019 must be £50,000 or less, and it must represent the majority of your taxable profits that year. If you don't comply with that one, you do have another test, and if you pass this, you get in. The second test is the average of your trading profits for the year ended 5th of April 17, plus the 5th of April 18, plus the 5th of April 19, divided by 3, less than £50,000, and do these profits constitute the majority of your taxable income for that period? So you just have to comply with one of those two to get through the next test. The other tests are, you must have actually been trading apart from COVID-19 in the year ended 5th of April 20, and you intend to trade in the year ended 5th of April 21. So there are a number of tests that you've got to pass to get through this. The final thing is, you won't actually receive any money until June. The payment will be made in one lump sum, and you don't have to do anything. HM Revenue and Customs will contact you. So the problem with that is that it could then, we've already seen a lot of fraudsters and scams around where people are contacting taxpayers and saying you're due money back. If everyone is waiting till June to be contacted by HM Revenue and Customs, you can see great scope for scams and fraudsters getting involved.
Okay, so that's clearly lots of twists and turns, lots of detail. I suppose I didn't really expect it to be anything else. When the Chancellor stands up and says he's going to put his arms around everybody and we're all going to have a big cuddle, it's not often. I sort of knew the devil would be in the detail. It's not always that simple, is it? So here we can see that. Obviously, there's the job retention scheme. In generic terms, your employer should be able to furlough you, and you and claim up to £2,500 per employee per month. I understand that includes NI and also pension payments, and there's a few other tests. What about VAT? What should people do with their VAT due between sort of March and June 2020?
So what happens is that the bit I was telling you before is the Self-Employment Income Support Scheme. That money is a grant, which means that you don't have to pay it back, but it is taxable income. So you will end up paying tax on the money you receive.
Okay.
With VAT, it's not a grant, but it's a deferral. So what that means is that any VAT that falls due to be paid between the 20th of March and the 30th of June 2020, you can defer that. So you still must file your VAT return for that quarter, but some people have their direct debit linked to the filing of the VAT return. So you must stop your direct debit, otherwise it will automatically be paid. The deferral of the VAT means that you can defer the payment until the later of 31st of March 2021. So you nearly have 12 months to keep hold of that money, but you still have to pay it back next year at the latest. You can pay it back earlier if you want.
So you don't need to say anything. You just cancel the direct debit and then you pay it back this coming January.
As long as you filed your VAT return.
Yeah. Okay. I also I thought I'd just run a little test the other day, and I called the Time to Pay hotline, HMRC Time to Pay line, and I asked if we could defer the national insurance and also the PAYE income tax that we'd normally pay for all the employees. We've got, I think, 60, 70 employees, about 70, something like that. He asked me 3 questions: what sort of business we're running, various other things, and then immediately agreed to defer it all for 3 months. And then he said, let's have a chat in 3 months' time.
I mean, the Time to Pay, the Inland Revenue have got a hotline for this, and it's 0800 0159 559. So I would be very surprised if they didn't allow you this, given the current circumstances. And there's a lot of people that may want to take advantage of this who fall between the cracks because they may not be self-employed, they may not be employees, such as directors of their own limited companies. So if some people say, well, I've got a limited company and I take a salary from that. But they may have pegged the salary at below the national insurance threshold. So they might take a salary of £6,000. Because the company hasn't got a PAYE scheme, they don't fall within the job retention scheme because they're not employees for these purposes. And the job retention scheme says that you've got to have a PAYE scheme set up and you must be an employee at the 28th of February 2020. So those people can't take advantage of that. If they take a dividend from their own limited company, they're not self-employed either. So they can't take advantage of any of those. So what they could take advantage of is the time to pay for corporation tax. Because if they've taken a dividend, they must have distributable profits, which means they must have a corporation tax liability. And that corporation tax liability falls due 9 months and 1 day after the year end. So that may assist them in helping with their cash flow.
Okay. Business rates, and also, so there's two things here. There's either a deferral, there's a sort of 12 months, there's a 12 months rate free period for certain businesses, and there's also a grant. Is that right? So we've got leisure, retail, and hospitality.
Yeah, so for business rates, originally the Chancellor said that for the year ended 31st of March 2021, any business that was in the retail, hospitality and leisure sector did not have to pay any business rates. He also said that it covered guest and boarding premises, self-catering accommodation and hotels. Then what happened later is he then extended it to cover nurseries, estate agents and betting halls, bingo halls. Now, if you think that you could fall within that, because I think it covers holiday homes, which may be of interest to some of your customers. Now, there is a very natty piece of legislation that you might want to read at some stage. It's a bit turgid, but it's called Business Rates, Expanded Retail Discount 2021, Coronavirus Response Local Authority Guidance. Now, in that, it actually is very detailed and it lists who is exempt and who isn't. And it's a constantly moving, changing list. The most disappointing thing about that list is it specifically says what isn't included. And that means accountants. So we don't get it.
Well, Chris, just give us that link again. I'm going to have a good look at that, because I think running a training business, I don't know, there might be a little bit of a sort of crack that we can sort of run through, and lots of other people. What's the link again?
So it's Business Rates, Expanded Retail Discount 2020/21, Coronavirus Response - Local Authority Guidance.
Interesting.
See if you can find anything of relevance. But the list is changing because the Chancellor, as I say, he already extended it to put more businesses in there, specifically of relevance to some of our clients, nurseries. So they get relief from that.
Okay, fine. In addition to that, I understand that coronavirus business interruption loan scheme, now there are no personal guarantees up to 250,000, and the government's putting pressure on the banks to reduce the rates. If anybody is interested in taking one of those loans out, they're interest free for the first 12 months. And then my understanding is the capital repayments will start at the end of year one, and they have to be repaid over the next 5 years. So it's a 6-year loan. With the first year, I don't think you're paying any interest or capital repayments. I've got a broker who is doing these coronavirus business interruption loans. His name is Simon Grace, and telephone number 07894 649 463. That's 07894 649 463. Great. So, Chris, have you had any dealings with any of the banks recently on your sort of loans? I know I had one of our commercial lenders on the phone, and I think it was probably 2 or 3 weeks ago when this all started kicking off. He said, "Oh well, we've had a discussion in the office this morning, and we just sort of think any businesses who are coming to us asking for loans during this period, they're probably not the people we want to lend to." And then yesterday I had a conversation with him, and it was just completely different. It was, by the way, if you want a capital repayment holiday, I'm doing them en masse. I think I've had something like 40 customers have asked, and 38 have said yes, and we're just doing them all over the place right now. You had any experience with any of that?
Yeah, I've had some clients that applied for it, and I think sort of to start with, prior to the Chancellor's announcements last night, is you've got to remember that the Chancellor basically said to start with is that you can only lend to a viable business.
Yeah.
Well, you may have noticed that previously the insolvency laws were dictated by the 1986 Insolvency Act. And basically what that said is that if you can't pay your debts as they fall due, you're not a going concern. So the government said you can only lend to going concerns. Well, that was ridiculous, because 90% of the businesses in this country probably aren't going concerns now, because they can't pay their debts as they fall due, because they've got cash flow problems. So then what happened is the government said to the banks, if the loan is in default, you need to take all reasonable measures to recover that loan before you can call on our guarantee. So therefore, what the banks did is they asked for personal guarantees, securities, etc., which really negated the whole purpose of setting this up in the first place. So what the government have now done is sort of relaxed that. But I think the problem is the speed of dealing with it. I mean, I mentioned earlier that for self-employed people, you won't get your money till June. I got a client that rang me on Monday, and he said, I can't even pay my lease payments, which fall due this week. So there's no way you can last till June.
Yeah, I know we made an application for coronavirus business interruption loan. I think it was about a week, 10 days ago, and I've just had a response. You know, I was talking to them originally a couple of weeks ago, and they're just saying, oh yeah, we'll get around to it. We'll have a look at it. You know, not particularly quick. Yeah, I guess this is sort of the case right across the country. So I think the best way to sort of get ahead with the cash flow is to stop the VAT, stop the national insurance, stop the PAYE tax, you know, and sort of work on any overdrafts.
Yeah, I mean,
and of course, if you already got loans, most of them they'll put them on interest only for 6 months. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing you've got to bear in mind is even with the job retention scheme, the employers would have paid the March wages, but HMRC's grant portal isn't open until the 21st of April.
Yeah.
So you can't access the portal yet.
No, we've noticed that. And then when does that money come through?
Well, it should be after the 21st of April.
So that's probably June as well. May, June.
Well, the government say it'll be quicker than that, and I'm hoping it will be in April. Because the trouble is, if they don't pay it before the end of April, that's another month's wages gone out.
Mm. Okay, fine. Good. So I have got a load of questions here, which we're going to run through. I'm going to ask you away, Chris, and if you could just sort of answer, that would be great. So Alan Johnson says, yes, why is Mark wearing a high-vis jacket? The reason I'm wearing a high-vis jacket is because I'm now a builder. I'm running a construction site in the middle of town. I quite like wearing this jacket because if the police or anyone else see me out and about, I can explain that I'm running a construction company and therefore we're exempt from the lockdown. We're practicing social distancing protocols on site. And working above a live retailer, a supermarket, which is providing an essential service, and we don't want the roof to collapse on them. So, yes, that's why I'm wearing a high-vis jacket. Craig asks, I've got 4 apartments empty, currently owned and managed by a limited company. Can I try and get the council to freeze the council tax due on them, as they're unlikely to be able to rent them at the moment? I think there is something on council tax. Chris, have you seen any of this?
Yes. So we are based in southwest London in Barnes, and Richmond Council have already written to us saying they're not going to ask for the rates to be paid, the council tax, or even the residential liabilities. So I think the council's been very helpful on this, and I'd be very surprised if you didn't pay them if they chased you.
Yeah, I think do the same on the business rates. I think I cancelled the direct debit and had a word with them, and they just said, "Oh yeah, we'll pay it towards the end of the year." Yeah,
we've actually had correspondence from the 2 of the electricity companies said that they're going to suspend chasing debts for 3 months as well.
Yeah. Same with credit cards as well. Apparently, the government's telling them that they're going to have to stop charging interest for the next 3 months, and they're not going to get any payments. And obviously, a residential mortgage lender as well, they seem to be doing it en masse. So you're still going to have to pay it back, but I think they're offering 3-month mortgage holidays en masse.
Yeah, there's 3 months mortgage holidays, but also the government have approached the Financial Conduct Authority to tell them to be lenient on credit card debts, any liabilities of that sort of financial nature that people have got into. They can't aggressively chase them, and I don't think even get through to the courts, because a lot of the courts are suspended anyway.
I think they're shut. We're not allowed to evict anyone. We have to give 3 months notice to evict anyone now. Yeah. And that's just been introduced, which basically puts a 3-month freeze on evictions. However, if we have a tenant that can't pay, and we usually ask them for a bank statement and also an application for universal credit, if it's a residential tenant, clearly their bank statement shows us if they've been spending money on lots of other things, which then we advise them that really they should be paying their rent. If they can't provide that, then we still expect the rent. But if they are in financial hardship, we can pass that to the lender, and then the lender will suspend mortgage payments. The government has told them to do that, so that's quite useful as well. Okay, so
sorry, can I just add that it's not just residential tenants; it's commercial tenants as well.
Yeah,
landlords can't evict them either for 3 months.
Yeah, that's true. However, the government hasn't said the same to the commercial lenders, in that they don't have to give any sort of payment holiday to the landlord, which seems a bit unfair. I mean, one of my friends has got 50 retail units in a town, and I think they were due their sort of rent quarter, and I think it was about £1 million they were due, and they actually received 100,000. That was last week. But my understanding is their lender, who we also use as well, will do capital repayment holidays for 6 months. I mean, you just ring them up and ask for it.
I read that British Land only expect to receive 1/3 of their usual rental income.
Yeah.
So I think it's across
the board. That was
it too,
as well. 29%.
Yeah.
Yeah. It retail, leisure, pubs, hotels, hospitality, all that. I think they're the sectors which are especially badly hit. Another question from James. Barclays were very shifty. Coronavirus interruption loan scheme. This tried to get me to use credit cards, personal loans. All right. Actually, they've been all right with us. We use Barclays as well. So maybe it depends who you talk to. Adil says, getting on the phone with Barclays was impossible until I complained. They called me, and they are adding stipulations that the minimum you can take out with them is 25k, otherwise you don't qualify. They're looking at quite a bit more than that for us, but we haven't been approved yet, so I don't know. Natalie says, whereabouts, Craig? There's someone I spoke to in the progressive community who's looking for somewhere to rent. Alan Wood says, question, coronavirus business interruption loan scheme, any guidance or experience on evaluation criteria for lenders? So my understanding is the way they've been talking to us is you've got to have a viable business. They'll look at the profit last year, probably look at the balance sheet, look at the impact that it's going to have on your business. So what is the sort of loss likely to be? now you can't run your business. How much can you reduce that loss by sort of, locking down your business, reducing costs and furloughing staff? And then what is the net loss that you're likely to make over the next 6 to 12 months? Take that as a sort of capital number, and that's maybe what you can borrow. That was it in very generic terms. That was how it was explained to me. And the next part of this question was how any existing debt on company balance sheet will be treated for evaluating application for coronavirus business interruption loan scheme. I don't know is the honest answer as to how debt on the company balance sheet will be dealt with. The last I heard, though, they will maybe be above 250,000. They will be maybe asking for a personal guarantee on the 20% that the bank is taking the risk on, but the 80% the government is offering, you may not have to offer a personal guarantee. That's what I was told a couple of days ago by the bank.
I think after yesterday's announcement by the Chancellor, I would encourage anyone that didn't have any success to try again. Originally, they were told that they had to try and get a commercial loan before they go for a coronavirus business interruption loan. But once the Chancellor's made this announcement, I think banks are being more pragmatic. So I spoke to a client before, just earlier today, and he said that the banker now said to him that because it is so much crystal ball gazing, I mean, who knows when this will finish? So if you don't know when it finished, how you can predict your sales is beyond me. But his bank manager, who's very pragmatic, basically said, if it was a good business before this came,
yeah,
the chances are it's going to be a good business after.
That's what they said to me. They said if it was good before this started, then we'll just assume it was good afterwards. And we know that. He didn't ask me what we make. He just went straight into his system. He's already got our accounts from last year because they always ask for them. And he just said, right, you made this last year. So, and then started working his numbers out based on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a case of them taking a pragmatic view because I don't think that whatever you give them, you can place much reliance on it, nor can they, because we've got no idea. The main problem is that all the businesses I talk to say that even if they've got cash in the bank at the moment, they think all that will be used up to take them through this period.
Yeah.
And they won't have any cash left for working capital when they come out of this.
That's the problem. That's the worry I have. Okay, Umar asks, does Tier 2 employee, can they be furloughed? Any impact on visa terms? Do you know a Tier 2 employee? You heard of one of those, Chris?
Yeah, I have. I don't see that. As far as I'm aware, the employment legislation stays the same. There's a couple of wrinkles with regards to rolling over holidays, which wasn't. They've changed the working time directive for that, I think. But other than that, I don't see that there are any stipulations on furloughing an employee, whether they've got Tier 2 or not.
Okay. Do we have, Hemmer asks, do we have to pay the higher minimum wage when we furlough staff?
The government have said that the minimum wage legislation doesn't kick in for furlough because furlough is a grant, not a wage.
Okay. Claire asks, is the coronavirus business interruption loan scheme available to a startup in the first year and no tax return and due to generate income in a few months, but just at stage of investing? Honestly, Claire, I think that's very much down to the bank which you apply to and what they think. It's very inconsistent. So what I do is I would just hawk around all the banks that offer this until you get somewhere. I remember in the last recession, I must have ended up going to, I don't know, 15 banks to get lending on the kind of properties we wanted to buy because the lenders we used before suddenly didn't want to know Rob and I because they'd got into bother. And eventually we found some. You can find these lenders online. They're the high street banks, but there's a load more as well. I will get the name of the website. It's called the British-Business-Bank.co.uk. So the information is on there, and all the lenders that offer this scheme are on there. And my understanding is there are around 40 lenders offering it. There were when I last looked. So have a look on there. Adam asks, my wife quit her job. She's a teacher to start business on the 4th of March. Seems she's not included anywhere for support. Yeah, welcome to the club, Adam. I'm getting nothing. We may get a coronavirus business interruption loan. And clearly we're going to get something for furloughed staff. Yeah, I think the government are always good at sort of standing there and explaining how they're looking after people. But there's also a lot of people that fall between the cracks, and I'm one of them.
There might be something to help Adam.
Yeah.
My understanding, and you'd have to double check it, is if his wife goes back to her last employer, they may be able to reinstate her and then furlough her. Now, they don't have to agree to that, but if they did do that, then they would claim the money back from the government. So hopefully they wouldn't be out of pocket, but she may get up to £2,500. And then her ex-employer, who'd now re-employed her, would then claim that back from the government. They'd have a disadvantage in their cash flow, but they shouldn't lose money in the intervening period. And I don't know if that would be a possibility to help his wife out.
We certainly did that with some staff. Yeah. And we're hoping to claim sort of that they've been furloughed as well. Louis asks, have you any information toward funding for startup companies? I think we've been through that. Anthony says, can personal service company apply for a business interruption loan? My understanding is it's a trading business, and they seem interested in your payroll. I don't know if some of the smaller lenders will still do it, but it does seem to be for trading businesses with a payroll. Any idea, Chris?
Well, isn't Anthony just talking about going through bank facilities?
Yeah, he's trying to get this business interruption loan to his personal service limited company. I just suspect they're not going to do that.
You could try. It really comes back to whether you convince the bank manager it's a reasonable risk.
Yeah. Dean says, can you apply for business interruption loan to pay off bridging finance? No. The purpose of it is to run your trading business. I'm sure lots of people will use it for other purposes, but I think if you tell the bank that's what you're going to do, they're not going to lend it to you. And it says that on this British Business Bank website, what the purpose is. My BTL lender just dropped today from 75 to 60% loan to value, which means a shortfall of 70k on paying my bridge loan off. It won't extend. What are your thoughts to try and top this up with coronavirus business interruption loan? Same as my answer to the previous question. It's just not really something I can advocate using a loan for the wrong purpose. Ravi says, hi Chris and Mark, can you please shed light on whether business people who run property buy-to-lets in their personal names and pay tax via their self-assessment qualify for self-employed income protection scheme that the Chancellor announced this week? No, I don't think you do, unless you're self-employed. And Chris explained earlier on the hurdles which you need to meet or go over to prove that you are self-employed. But if you just got buy-to-lets in your personal name, do you want to just repeat, Chris? You need a self-assessment tax return.
Yeah, the main thing is that
fill in 2 sections of your personal tax return. Which sections were they?
So to give you an idea, I had a client that rang me up today and said, can you claim the self-employment income support scheme for me? And I said, well, why do you think you qualify? She said, well, because I do a self-assessment tax return. And I said, but they're not the criteria. Your income is from a pension, bank interest, and rental income. Now, none of those are trades. You're only self-employed if you're trading. Rental income is deemed to be passive income if you just receive rent and don't do anything else. So what the government say is that A, you must have a self-assessment tax return, which Ravi will have, but he probably doesn't tick box 2 or box 3 of page TR2 of that tax return that says I'm either self-employed or a partner in a trading partnership. So if you don't do that, you don't qualify for the first hurdle because you're not running a trade, so therefore you're not self-employed.
Adil asks, what about businesses who have not been paying business rates previously? Is it too late for those businesses to register for business rates and then get eligible for the grant?
Well, there are two different types of grants. There is something called the small business relief for people who pay little or no business rates. So it may be that he doesn't actually have to pay rates by virtue of the size of the premises that he's got. Now, in there, you can actually get £10,000 grant if you have small business rate relief or rural rate relief. If it's that his business is bigger, I don't understand why he's not paying rates, because the council would have levied it.
Louis asks, we're a new startup manufacturing supplements, 0 sales, literally new, and our unit falls outside the limits for rates relief. Have you any advice towards what we can apply for funding? Could you be a bit more specific, Louis, as to what type of funding you mean?
It may be the small business rates relief that they're entitled to.
Yeah.
Which is where they pay little or no business rates, and then they can get a grant of up to £10,000. Now, the thing about these grants is A, they're administered by the local authority, not by the government, and B, the local authority will contact you, and they already have started contacting businesses to give these grants out. So if you haven't heard from them, I suggest you contact your local authority.
Bert asks, my partner is a self-employed mortgage advisor, started up her limited company in October. Any advice for her? There's currently no books for this year and she's obviously really worried.
So this sort of gets back to what I was saying before. Without wishing to split hairs, you can't have a self-employed limited company. You're either self-employed or you've got a limited company. Now, if you've got a limited company, then you don't fall under the relief for the self-employment income support scheme.
Even if you pay yourself a salary?
Well, the only way you'll get relief for that is under the job retention scheme.
Yeah.
But A, you must have a PAYE scheme. So some businesses and limited companies pay themselves a salary of, say, £6,000, which is beneath the national insurance threshold. So they don't have a PAYE scheme. If they do have a PAYE scheme, they must be an employee at the 28th of February. Now, note I said the 28th of February, even though this year is a leap year, because that's what the legislation says. So if, for sake of argument, you took on a member of staff on the 1st of March, you can't furlough them because they weren't an employee at the 28th of February.
Okay, so basically you've got to be self-employed, operating as a sole trader or through a partnership.
Or to get that, yes. Or if you are an employee, you claim under the job retention. Your employer claims under the job retention scheme,
which is furloughing.
Yeah.
Okay, Mark says my dental business of 34 years is not on the list of affected businesses. Same here, Mark. We run a training business. We're not officially on that list. However, our workflows cease completely. We don't qualify for small business rates relief. Neither do we. Retail rate relief grants. Neither do we. My staff are furloughed, but we directors are paid dividends plus a tax-free allowance. We get nothing to help. Is our SIBLS our only option?
Well, to start with, if you pay dividends, then the chances are you've got an income tax liability. So you don't have to pay your personal income tax liability on 31st July 2020, and then that can be deferred until the year end, until you pay it on 31st of January 2021. If you've got a limited company and to pay dividends, then you must have got a corporation tax liability. If you've got a corporation tax liability, you can use time to pay because the liability will fall due 9 months and 1 day after the end of the year.
Okay, David says, about to complete on a commercial purchase with the intention of residential conversion. Other relief I should claim if can't get the builders in there immediately and thus it remains commercial. Rateable value is 5,100 and therefore nothing paid.
Well, if the rateable value is 5,100, then you may be eligible for the direct business grants for small businesses. So you would need to check with the council whether you can actually claim a grant of up to £10,000.
Okay, Rupert says, is there relief you can claim for an individual who gets most of their income from rental income, buy-to-let property, but isn't set up as a limited company apart from just arranging mortgage holidays with a lender? So I think that person is self-employed, but the income is coming through property income rather than a trading business. So I guess that wouldn't qualify, Chris.
If it's rental income, and if that's the rental income is the majority of the taxable income, then they're not self-employed. But they will have, if they're making a profit, they'll have an income tax liability. So they can delay the payment of the tax that was due on 31st of July this year until 31st of January next year. Presumably they haven't got any employees.
Okay, so Ray asks, we have a refurbished 33-room hotel into serviced apartments. We've refurbished it into serviced apartments. Only opened in November. We had to return 87,000 in deposits. Bank said earlier this week that we don't qualify for coronavirus business interruption loan scheme. Could we qualify now? I think that's very much down to the bank that you speak to, Ray. I think get on that British Business Bank website, talk to 5 of them. I think, you know, some of them may say you qualify, because I know that's, you know, you could say maybe that's an investment company, but, you know, a block of serviced apartments is, you know, you could argue that's a trading business. It's like a hotel, isn't it? What would you say, Chris?
Well, I'd concur with that, but also Ray should get a 12-month holiday for business rates because he comes under the retail, hospitality and leisure sector. And also there's a retail and hospitality grant scheme. And this is cash grants of up to 25,000 per property. So not only should he get a business rates holiday, he may be able to get a cash grant of up to £25,000.
Okay, Justin says, if I lend my limited company cash out of my personal savings for working capital to fund existing projects, can I charge the company interest? And if so, how do you determine what HMRC will allow?
Well, the answer is yes, but the question then is, why do you want to do that? So to give you an example, if you charge interest to your limited company, the highest rate of corporation tax that the limited company will pay is 19%. However, the lowest rate of income tax is 20%. So if you're a taxpayer, there are some other allowances, so it depends whether they get any of the interest allowances, but broadly, the company would only get tax relief at 19%, and you may pay tax at 20%.
Because you've got to pay tax on that interest because it's an income.
Correct. Now, there is some interest received reliefs. He might fall within that. But the other thing to note is if a limited company pays an individual interest, because they are both connected, i.e. he's a director of the limited company, then it must be at market value. And Inland Revenue state what the interest rate is. You can't just pick something out of thin air. So you should be able to justify the market value. And secondly, the company would have to fill in every time the interest is paid. to the lender, it has to deduct tax on that interest and pay that to the revenue, and then the taxpayer will claim that interest back. So it's a bit more cumbersome, and he's got to think of it, will it get to the right answer, or will it just involve him in more tax?
Okay. John says, what is the position regarding the 10k grant if we're based in a serviced office, so Regis, business rates factored into the cost of the office, I presume? My understanding of that, John, I asked that question. We've got a rate specialist, and we actually we own a letting agency, and they pay the landlord, which is my company. They pay a sort of service. It's a license fee, and it's all wrapped up into that fee. So the business rates, the utilities, and the rent. And he said that they couldn't claim a grant because it would be taken on the rateable value of the whole building. So I checked that earlier in the week. Vince asks, if you're only one director of a limited company and you're on the PAYE, can you furlough yourself?
That's a good question, Vince. And my answer would be different to what it would have been last week. So the government have changed the rules. To start with, they said you can't furlough yourself because who runs the company? Now, bear in mind, the furlough rules they came in on the 1st of March, and they run for a maximum of 3 months till the 31st of May. The minimum furlough period is 3 weeks. The maximum furlough period is 3 months. You can furlough someone for, say, 3 weeks, then they can work, then you can put them back on furlough. With a director, the government have said that as long as all you do is directorial duties and you do no work in running the business, then you can furlough yourself.
Okay. Michelle says, do you have to apply to defer the July tax payment, or has it already been implemented? My understanding is that you just don't pay it and it's automatic. Is that right, Chris?
Yes, it's automatic. You don't pay it, so you just got to do a diary note to pay it by the 31st of January 2021.
Kathy says, really appreciated you doing this. I'm not getting anything other than the utilities. Council tax can just wait. Having bought a buy-to-let residential 4 weeks ago, not been able to get in to do the renovation. No council tax or utilities will be paid. Still, this is great help. Gary says, if you're paying council tax on a serviced apartment, could you request the council to consider you for a business grant and then start paying business rates? Has anyone been in this position, had any success? So really what he's saying, Chris, is that it's a bit of a sort of hybrid, bit of a grey area. Obviously flats, you would pay council tax maybe £1,200 a year, but if it's running as a serviced accommodation, actually you should have contacted the council, contacted business rates, told them, and got it shifted onto the business rates regime. But Gary hasn't done that. Can he now do that? I think it probably depends on the council, doesn't it?
My understanding that the direct business grants to small businesses is for small businesses that pay little or no rates. Now, there are businesses that pay rates, but between 15,000 and 51,000 is where you receive the grant of 25,000. Whether he'll actually get that, he needs to approach his local authority for that.
Kimberly says, about to complete on a 7-bed HMO in London, first purchase in a new limited company. If I can't do the renovation works on lockdown, are there any funding support I can get?
Well, coronavirus business interruption certificate probably won't be applicable on that. Normally I would say that when you buy a property, you need a lot of working capital and you need that put to one side. On the presumption that she's going to use up all her working capital, she'll have to go back to the building society or bank to see if they extend the loan.
Lindsay says, just to say thanks, guys, for this. It's really appreciated. Michelle says, thanks, appreciated. Mark says, I believe that SBILS has been adjusted to be non-PG up to 250 with first year 0% interest. I agree. I think that is the case. Do you know if the bank's interest rates have been capped for the remaining term? I don't think they have been capped, Mark, but I think the government have told them not to be unreasonable, and that seems to have come in the last week. Abby says, I trade from my home running an SA and a rent to rent. I've not filed my accounts yet, as it's my first year of trading. I've no staff, no other income, so not yet on the payroll of the property business. The question is, what help can I realistically get? My tenants are paying now, but not sure what will happen during this period.
You can claim in your limited company accounts, if that's what it is, limited company, then you can claim for use of home as office, but the government rates are very low. They'll only HM Revenue customers only allocate something like £4 a week for working from home. With regards to the other expenses, if your tenants aren't paying you, you can't evict them for 3 months. You can't take any action against them for 3 months. I suggest you would go back to your lender and try and not pay the interest.
Yeah, lots of lenders will negotiate, even though they haven't been told to do. Commercial lenders haven't been told to do that on commercial buildings by the government, but they will. John says, I've got a 4-bed HMO. It's in a limited company. Myself and my wife are directors. There are no employees. Are we entitled to any funding support if needed? Currently, tenants are all paying.
Well, I don't know of any loans that's going to be applicable to you because you're not a trading business with it's an HMO. But then again, if the tenants are paying, why do you need a loan?
It's a very good point. Katrina and Catherine both say, huge thank you for providing this advice. Thank you for taking the time. And one final question. Aaron says, hi, I'm currently running a site via my development company. So am I, Aaron. This company has development finance agreed on this. However, drawdowns are in arrears once work targets have been met by the builder. Me too. I own the building company. Also, who my development company pays? Same here, Aaron. I'm in exactly the same situation. My building company now has credit accounts, due invoices from the contractors, but no further targets being met as my Meneville stopped. Would the building company be eligible for the interruption loan as its income has been completely pulled by the development company as no drawdown funds can be called on with targets not met? No, I don't think so, Aaron. I don't think it's a... Mind you, it could be construed as a trading business. Ordinarily, I thought it wouldn't be because most things are investment. But, you know, if you're going to be trading the units out, I suppose maybe it is a trading business. Maybe you could go to the bank for a business interruption loan. I think the key is to get men back on site and get rolling. We're allowed to run as a construction company. All of my guys desperately want to work because, you know, most of them have been telling me, oh, I've worked out I'm going to get 200 or 300 pounds a week from the government when normally those guys are getting 200 pounds a day. So I think you need to get the men back on site so that you can show progress to the bank's monitoring surveyor when he comes out, so that you get drawdowns from your development funder. Sites are opening again. A lot of the big ones shut. I know, you know, sort of Henry shut and Persimmon and Barrett and all that lot. But I've been hearing more and more that they've been trying to use this as a relevant event in their contract with their customers, with their developer customers, and claim extension of time. And most of them have been going back, and obviously their lawyers have been saying, well, the government didn't tell you to stop, so it's not a relevant event, so you can't have an extension of time. So lots of them are reopening. Clearly the challenge for us as well is materials. Travis have shut. Lots of Dewsons have shut. Buttles have shut. But every now and again, yesterday we found B&Q had got stuff, concrete blocks which we needed. They were in Loughborough, so we've hired a van. So we're steaming around getting that stuff. Wicks this morning, let's do click and collect on a load of sand. You know, we managed to find sort of screw fix. you know, we basically, my guys are driving a van all around the place, just picking materials up, and we're going to keep rolling for as long as we're legally allowed to do so. And I think you should consider doing the same thing. That's maybe why the government are letting you do it, because they know it's particularly difficult for construction sites and the people on them, because they're going to end up really badly off, a lot of those guys.
Sorry, can I just add something?
Yeah.
With Aaron, if he's got the development finance, surely he only needs the guys to finish the next stage before he gets the architect certificate that will release the next development finance. So
yeah,
he only really needs to get to the next stage. I don't know if a coronavirus business interruption loan scheme would be appropriate, because that could be up to 6 years. All he really needs to do is get to the next month to get the architect certificate to release the funds, and then he's off again.
He needs to get the men back on site, get rolling, so that he can get to the next stage, and then the bank's monitoring surveyor will come out, sign it off, and then give him the next tranche of money.
Yeah, then he'll be back in funds.
Yeah, you need to get back on site and get working. I know lots of people don't want to hear that, and you know, we're supposed to be following all this social distancing, and you can put stuff in place to do that, but you know, a lot of these people who are on Twitter, and you know, the mayor of London, you know, telling us we've got to shut our construction sites, and they're not offering us any money, and they're not offering us solutions. So you know, you've got to balance what some of these sort of utopic thoughts are from people who are not having to run a business, don't have fixed costs, and are not in the same situation as you. You know, you've been told by the government you're legally allowed to continue. You know, clearly keep all the workers 2 meters apart, give them hand sanitizers on the way in. You know, give them disciplinaries if they don't follow it, and you know, make sure that they're staying away from each other. And if anyone is ill or is displaying signs, make sure they stay at home for 2 weeks and don't come back to the site. You know, otherwise just carry on. It's my attitude.
I think it goes back to what you first said. Cash is king. Got to get the cash, keep it rolling in.
Yeah, keep it rolling. Okay, so I think we're pretty much done. Have you got any other questions, Chris? Sorry, any other comments, Chris?
Well, there is a lot of money out there that the government would like you to take. Make sure you understand the legislation. Like I say, I've done 2 of these financial reviews now. There is a lot of information in there. Make sure that you don't pay any money up front to any government institution that you don't have to. So that could be VAT, PAYE, income tax, corporation tax, national insurance, and also make sure you claim back whatever you can, because you've got to keep on top of the cash. None of us know how long this will last, and we don't know if we'll actually get to the end of it. However, what I do know is the businesses that survive this will be very strong compared to some of the others that might go by the wayside. And then hopefully you might find that you'll actually pick up some bargains at the end of it if you've got cash.
What sort of bargains are you expecting, Chris?
Well, I'm thinking of, say, property. Anyone in the property sector, if you look, the government expect to bring in £8.6 billion of SDLT this year, and now they're saying it's probably going down by £5 billion.
Unbelievable.
Now, there'll be a lot of businesses that will be out of cash. So there may be people that want to sell property, that if you can access that quicker, you may be able to pick up some bargains. Some of the stuff we're also doing is that some people have large capital gains. Now, what they may want to do is keep properties in the family. Now may be a time to consider passing those, because the property values will have dropped. So you could mitigate your capital gains, because even if I gave a property to my son, I will still have a capital gains tax bill by virtue of the fact that I've disposed it out of my estate, even if he doesn't pay me a penny. And the other thing to bear in mind is that come the 6th of April, there's new capital gains tax legislation that says you'll have to pay that capital gains within 30 days of completion and file a new capital gains return. So people need to think about this, but it may be a way of moving assets around in their family, in their estates, if they want to take advantage of the low prices.
Well, it's been very interesting, Chris. How can people find you, learn more about you, and sort of get in contact?
So we're Wilkins Southworth. We're based in Barnes, southwest London. We've got a website. We've even got some COVID-19 financial reviews on there. Give some more details about it. We do a lot of property. We've been doing loads of advice on this. If anyone wants to get in touch, please feel free.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you, Mark.
That's been Chris Wilkins at Wilkins Southworth, our accountant, and Mark Homer for this COVID-19 financial tax grant loan review. Thank you for watching.